Softness is something that we saw as well as a lot of the competitors in the supply chain. I think it was the degree of softness and just how much China fell off a cliff is what shocked us. I think now going forward, fundamentally, it is a fork in the road situation. You either view it as a sum of the parts and that Cook is going to be a pilot on the plane, cut prices, get demand back, focus on the install base. Otherwise, if the pricing hubris continues and they continue to go down this path and blame it on macro issues, that's not a good end to that story. So I think that's going to be the bull-bear debate today.
How much of this, in your mind as an analyst, is about the micro versus the macro? Tim Cook focused a lot on the macro concerns, the economy in China, slowdowns, secular trends in smartphones. How much of this do you feel is specific to execution on Apple's part as opposed to what's happening in the broader industry?
Yeah, I view that 80% of this is Apple specific in terms of the pricing. I mean, fundamentally, in my opinion, it's the darkest day for Cook in the modern iPhone era because they mispriced XR to such a degree that especially Chinese consumers, where they were expecting, call it 50 to 60 million upgrades, you're only going to see 15 to 20 million. Chinese consumers basically said, we're not going to upgrade at these price points. We'll go to lower price competition. So even though there are macro headwinds, a slowing smartphone market, this is much more of what I view as an Apple-specific pricing hubris miscalculation rather than a macro issue.
Elizabeth Schulze had just brought up this idea that Apple is not even one of the, well, it's one of the biggest, but it's the 5th biggest supplier of smartphones in China. Other competitors are much larger. How important is that China thesis to the overall health of Apple going forward?
I mean, China is the hearts and lungs of the bull thesis. I mean, to put in perspective, it's about 20% plus of the overall iPhone upgrades over the next 12 to 18 months, which is why this hurts so much in terms of numbers and in terms of what the outlook is going forward, because China's key to the growth thesis for Cook. And that's why right now, they need to seriously go back in Cupertino and fundamentally figure out pricing, what they're going to do, because we fundamentally believe a $750 iPhone XR, the core price point is probably closer to $5 to $550, and where there's a supply-demand trigger.
CNBC's Jim Cramer spoke just last month about this idea that expectations, the chatter was already out there, that Apple was going to have to manage down expectations from their previous views. From an analyst perspective, you're a bull on Apple. You still are, pending this review of your target price and rating. What makes you bullish, or are you going to become more bearish on this based upon the outlook that we've just been given on the record by Tim Cook?
Yeah, and look, it's going to be very easy to throw in the white towel across the board that you'll see today. We continue to be bullish fundamentally on the install base. I mean, we view this as an install base, 750 million active iPhones, billion plus devices sold to date. In our opinion, it's an install base sum of the parts story. If you view it right here, you're basically getting the iPhone franchise for 1 times revenue. If you think the install base declines from here, which we do not believe, then fundamentally you're negative. But in our opinion, it's an install base and services story going forward. But Cook, it's the most defining period for him as a leader of Apple. And quite frankly, I think in talking to investors the whole night, it was disappointing, his comments, blaming it on macro and trade and everything else out there, instead of really look in the mirror and say, this was our execution issue, and we're going to try to fix it.